This is Lizzie, all the way from Savannah, Georgia, and you're listening to Scandalwater.
Welcome to Scandalwater,
where we cover the stories that have captivated the entertainment world.
I'm Candy, a longtime educator and community theater actress.
And I'm Ashley, a writer and co-founder of a local theater group.
We're two friends who share a love of entertainment.
From true crime docuseries, to blockbuster movies, to classic TV, to Broadway shows, and everything in between.
Each week, I share a compelling story related to pop culture.
And I chime in using my trivia junkie brain.
We stick to the facts until it's time to settle into our armchairs at the end.
Then we're simply two women with a strong cup of tea and even stronger opinions.
We're Scandalwater.
And if this sounds like your cup of tea,
follow the show on your favorite podcast app or the Scandalwater Podcast YouTube channel.
Oh, it's that time of day. Tune in and hear what the ladies say. It's time to bend your ear when the silver screen appears. Stories about the stage and screen and everything in between. So come on and join the fun. The curtain opens in 3, 2, 1.
Hello, Ashley.
hello.
Back for another Monster Madness story. Another big one, too. I'm so excited. I'm going to tell you. Okay, so driving in this morning, it was an unusual morning for me.
It was a little foggy, right?
It was beyond a little foggy. And I had extra driving to do because I actually had a dentist appointment. So I was like driving out into the city and then driving here. So I had a lot of drive time. And you guys, it was uncharacteristically foggy for this time of year. In fact, it was one of those experiences where I'm driving along, and again, I mean, I thought, okay, it's going to clear up. By the time
It doesn't.
It didn't.
No.
And so I'd be driving along, and I'd be like, okay, I can see the cars on the road in front of me, but I had no idea that stoplight was coming, or like you couldn't see which light was shining until you got right on top of it. I mean, it was thick.
You know what my favorite thing to do when that happens?
What's that?
Play classical music.
Really?
Claire de Lune is one of my favorites to play. It's very peaceful, but you'd probably be like, I'm going to listen to a horror story.
Well, I actually leaned into it. I was like, oh, this is going to be perfect. This sets the mood for our topic today, which I know they've seen the title. I get it. But we're going to hold for a second in naming it because I want to start with a bit of current events. Mm-hmm. When the Oscar nominations were announced in late January, there was one film in particular that received a lot of press. Did you happen to notice this?
Depends. What film was it?
It was Ryan Coogler's Sinners.
Oh, yeah.
It was huge.
It's gotten the most of any film ever, right? It broke records. I think it's nominated more than any other film.
Yeah, I'm not familiar with this work other than I've heard, the basic premise. But that movie sold $368 million in tickets, received 16 nominations in total, which is, as you said, more than any other film in Academy Award history. Just because I figured you'd ask. The previous record was held by All About Eve, Titanic, and La La Land, all of which had received 14 nominations. So the Academy Awards ceremony will be held on March 15th this year. So we're going to know here soon how many Oscars this movie actually brings home. But here's my point in sharing this information. With our theme this month being more Monster Madness, I thought it would be relevant to share this little hook because this very popular, this very current film centers around a confrontation with one particular supernatural creature that has been a part of literature and film lore for ages.
Yeah.
And that, of course, is the
vampire.
Yes. So, before we go ahead and name our specific topic, when you think of vampires, Ashley, what are some of the books or shows or whatever that come to mind?
Well, of course, you think of Dracula.
Absolutely.
That's the first one. Then I would say Interview with a Vampire.
That's one that I wrote down.
Twilight.
Mm-hmm.
Anne Rice, but she did Interview with a Vampire. That's what I was pausing for.
Salem's Lot is one that came to mind for me. Stephen King.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. The Munsters.
Oh, yeah.
I know.
Yeah.
The Vampire Diaries.
Didn't watch it.
Okay.
Oh, what about that thing that Anna Paquin was in? What was she in?
Oh, True Blood?
Was that Vampire?
I believe so. I didn't watch it, but yes. Lost Boys. I remember Lost Boys.
That's the one I was trying to think of.
Oh, yes. Buffy the Vampire Slayer.
Buffy the Vampire Slayer. Lots of
Okay,
it.
here's one. Did you read or watch Abraham Lincoln Vampire Hunter?
We did. It was
did
good.
too. I thought it was fun.
good.
I thought it was really fun. You know what else came to mind for me? Our X-Files episode, Bad Blood, that we watched. How about that one?
That was good.
And this is one that I did not think of, but I ran across it while I was researching, and it hit me in the face. I thought this was so cute. Count Von Count, the Sesame Street character, he's based on Dracula.
Count Dracula.
I thought that was so fun. I looked it up. It said that it was actually meant to be a parody of the Bela Lugosi version of Dracula.
Yeah.
Yes, and this was fun too. They said his famous character trait is also a nod to the fact that folklore often portrays vampires as having arithmomania, which is an obsessive need to count things.
Really?
Yes, that's how they... Is this not fascinating? Old stories would be told about people throwing rice or seeds down.
Because they'd have to count it, their OCD?
But yes, they would have to stop. The vampire has to stop and count it, which brought me again back to the X-Files Bad Blood episode. Yeah. Remember, he threw the stuff down, and that's what paused the vampire before. I absolutely...
And that's why he's Count Dracula.
Yes, had to stop and go, you guys, Sesame Street,
and maybe that's why he's Count
clever.
Dracula. He counts.
Anyway, I thought that was just
That's
perfect.
adorable.
Perfect. But as you've said, the most famous, the original in my mind, although we're going to talk about that more, is the work of Bram Stoker, Dracula, right?
Do I have Bram over here? Let's see. Hang on. Yeah, here he is. There's Bram.
You got it?
I got Bram Stoker right here.
Okay. Well, what is now you don't love scary things.
No, I don't.
So what is your familiarity with Dracula?
That he exists. and our theater did the radio play, so I've heard the radio play.
Yes.
Not a lot.
Did it bother you to hear a radio play version?
It was no,
Okay.
because it was more entertainment. I don't think I would like to read it though.
Okay.
Let's see. Bram Stoker, Dracula. He wrote a lot. Look at that cover. Talk about
Ooh, very
setting.
gothic.
Christmas 2006 is when I got this.
Wow, nice. Well, I was trying to think about my background with Dracula. Now, at some point, and I think it was actually when I was in college, I remember reading a huge chunk from the book, but I don't think I've ever read it cover to cover. I do recall it was not an easy read. You know, this is a Gothic novel written a long time ago. I remember the language was very flowery. I think some of it's a bit archaic to us now. I remember thinking, wow, this is pretty slow moving. And so it wasn't the easiest read, the chunk that I read. Now, I do recall seeing the 1992 Dracula movie that had Gary Oldman, Keanu Reeves, and Winona Ryder.
Have you heard the trivia about that they say they're still married? That Keanu Reeves and Winona Ryder are still married because they had a real priest or something married him in the movie, and they were like, we may or may not actually be married and still married. They're like, it's the longest marriage in Hollywood.
I remember thinking they would have made a cute couple.
They would have been super cute.
They would have been so good together. This has been 8 or 10 years ago, but I did see the play performed at Actors Theater.
Oh, was it good?
It was great. It was fantastic. It was very creepy. Their special effects were amazing. The acting was amazing. I remember loving that production. It was good.
A lot of people loved it. I didn't go because I thought I'd get too creeped out.
Well, I was excited to do this one. It's funny. We didn't mention this. You were the one who suggested King Kong.
Yes.
That was a little bit more up your alley.
Yes, which is weird. I don't like scary stuff, but yet I like the monster movies. I don't know what the difference is.
You like, I think, oversized things.
I do like oversized
You
things.
like Jurassic Park. You like
do.
dinosaurs.
I
think you like kind of that
large
idea
creatures.
Yes, on the loose.
Almost, but although in real life they frighten me a little bit. Well, they frighten me there too, but like cows, I'm like, I give a wary eye to cows. So maybe it's like medium-sized creatures. If there was a horror movie about cows or mid-sized horses, I'd be like, oh my gosh.
Twister.
Oh yeah, I did. Oh
Flying
gosh,
cows.
flying cows.
You did all right with the flying cow.
Oh.
Okay. But this was my suggestion. I think this is so fun. So I'm excited.
She's already gleeful. Her face is very gleeful.
Yes. So we are going to, again, this is like King Kong though. It is such a big topic. We are going to specifically hone in on Dracula.
Okay.
You know, we're gonna
Stoker.
go through the circumstances that led to the creation of Bram Stoker's
Maybe the
Dracula.
theme needs to be monsters origin.
Maybe. So here you go. You're going to get a little bit of history too.
I love history.
Vampire lore has been around for ages in numerous cultures across the globe, is what I discovered. But according to a 2023 PBS News article, the term vampire first appeared in writing in 1725. Here's an excerpt from that article where they explain, quote, "The earliest reference we have to a vampire is from a text in Old Russian written in 1047 AD, said Stanley Stepanek, an assistant professor in the Department of Slavic Languages and Literature at the University of Virginia. The actual term vampire made its written debut in 1725, Groom said. Around that time, the ruling class of the Habsburg Empire, controlled by the German royal family, whose capital was Vienna, Austria, were hearing alarming stories coming out of borderlands that they'd recently annexed from the Ottoman Empire farther east. In the 1720s, the military is sent to investigate what's going on, Groom said. And in 1725, there's a report sent back saying that a body has been exhumed and staked and then cremated because it was terrorizing the local community." That was there's our podcast.
Those are our podcasts. They had a little atmosphere there. They came tearing into the room chasing each other.
I know,
so.
Right on cue. And you did
Right
a
on
big
cue.
startle.
I did. I was like, what is that? So if they get too unruly, we will put them up. But we thought we'd let them roam free. So we'll see what happens.
Right now, Redford is about to pull something off the shelf,
Of course
I
he
believe.
is.
All right.
Yeah.
Well, how about that ending, though? A report about a body being exhumed, staked, and cremated because it was terrorizing the local community?
So that's what I don't understand. How could they exhume a body that's been cremated? Or did the people who exhumed it cremate it? Because he's ashes, right?
Well, I believe they
Those that did the
exhumed the body,
exhumation.
staked
Oh,
it, cremated
the
it
people
to
who-
make sure it
Oh,
was
okay.
not going to continue
That makes more
terrorizing the
sense.
community. Yes.
Like you all terrorizing us.
So that article is entitled "How Vampire Lore Emerged from Shadowy Medical Mysteries." And the point of that article was to argue that a lot of the lore around vampires was created as a way to explain confusing medical or health phenomena back in the day, such as things that happen to a dead body when it's decomposing or symptoms associated with rabies. So that's one theory, is that sometimes this lore was used just to explain these natural phenomena. Okay. So again, just to recap, we have the first known reference in writing to vampires occurring in 1725. And in terms of literature, most people agree that the next big development was the publication of the story The Vampire in 1819. And this is where I got super excited again. So we're going to follow this rabbit trail for just a second.
Okay.
Do you remember we've talked about the vampire in a previous episode?
Oh, no. What episode was it?
Okay. I'm telling you, I got so excited.
You are excited.
I am. Back when we did the episode on Frankenstein by Mary Shelley, this work came up. I listened to this episode again. I went and found it. It's titled It Lives, The Legacy of Mary Shelley's Frankenstein, and we put that out in March of 2023, and I think it's a really good episode. I don't want to sound like we're bragging on ourselves, but
no, that's why I loved that series, and that's why I wanted to do it again, because I loved that series.
That episode was so good. I listened, and I was, first of all, I was brought back into the circumstances that led to the creation of Frankenstein, and then I was like, you go, Mary Shelley. I mean, that woman was amazing. But here's my point. I'm going to recommend, if you're interested in this at all, do go back and listen to that episode.
Like a companion piece.
Exactly. Because you're going to hear a little bit more detail about this particular
Was somebody
event.
else in the party writing that story? Is
yes,
that okay?
And I'm going to give you a little touch of it now. But,
Right.
But again, if you go back to the previous episode, you'll get more detail. Okay, from the other angle. But here is basically what happened. Okay, quick overview. Back in 1816, Mary Shelley was staying in a villa at Lake Geneva in Switzerland with a small group of people that included her soon-to-be husband Percy, her stepsister Claire, Lord Byron, and a fella named John Polidori, who was a writer and a physician that basically traveled with Lord Byron. Lord Byron would refer to him as his traveling doctor. Okay. Now, when this group of people found themselves stuck inside for a long spell due to weather, because this was what they famously referred to as, the year without a summer, right? Mm-hmm. Lord Byron suggested that they pass the time by having a contest to see who could write the best ghost story. That is what ultimately prompted Mary to start the story that turned into Frankenstein, right? And in that podcast episode, we did briefly mention that the important literary work, The Vampire, also came out of that writing contest. We just didn't give you any of the details as to how it happened. So now I'm going to do that. Okay. Now, it was a little murky, but here's the best I could gather from my research. John Polidori, Lord Byron's physician friend, it seems did also participate in the ghostwriting contest because it was kind of hard to tell. Did he actually write something or not? It looks as though he did write something, but what he wrote had nothing to do with this famous work, The Vampire. Now, the one in that group who did write about a vampire was Lord Byron. Oh. He wrote a piece of a story. He didn't complete anything. He wrote kind of a little chunk of something. It's a story that is now known by the titles A Fragment, or sometimes it's referred to as Fragment of a Novel. But Lord Byron wrote this little part of a story, and his writing is what inspired John Polidori to then start working on his own vampire story later that summer. Okay. In fact, John Polidori is said to have modeled his main character, Lord Ruthven, after the main character that Lord Byron had created, who was named Augustus Darvel.
Oh, I like that name.
More so than that, though, most all the sources agree that as John was creating his story, he actually based a lot of his vampire Lord Ruthven's personality and characteristics on Lord Byron himself.
That's who I thought you were going to say he used as inspiration.
Yep. Everybody says, oh yeah, Lord Byron was a huge inspiration. Now here's a summary I found in a Literary Hub article. The Vampire tells the story of a young man named Aubrey, wistful, thoughtful, susceptible to wild fancies, and ever appreciative of the beauty he sees around him, who befriends the rakish and enigmatic Lord Ruthven, who has a habit of making conquests of young women.
Yeah, that sounds like Lord Byron.
Only after Aubrey travels to Greece and his love, the beautiful and knowledgeable about otherworldly creatures, Ianthe, is murdered by a vampire, does he begin to wonder if his friend is a monster. And he has this confirmed when Lord Ruthven is murdered by brigands, but nonetheless reemerges in Aubrey's life a year later with a new name and the intent to marry Aubrey's sister.
Whoa.
Yeah.
That's
so
really complicated.
I know. I was like, but still, it sounds like an interesting story idea. Mm-hmm. John Polidori finished a story that summer, and one source says that when he finished traveling and returned to his normal life a few months later, he left that story behind at a friend's house.
Don't do that. It's going to get copied.
I don't think he ever thought it was going anywhere.
Really?
I don't know that he ever thought he was going to publish it.
Why would you put all this work into something just for funsies?
I think it was fun. I think he just wanted to write a story. Now, it was the romantic era. People were writing things all the time. Maybe he just forgot about it. Maybe he got caught up in his summer.
I would never forget about something I had worked that hard on.
But what we definitively know, here's the part we know. A few years later, in 1819, his story somehow fell into the hands of a magazine editor who decided to publish The Vampire in the new monthly magazine, thinking that Lord Byron was the writer.
Oh.
So it was published with Lord Byron's name on it.
Was Lord Byron already gone at this point?
No.
Oh, well, Lord Byron.
Well, no, hang on. He didn't know what was happening either.
Oh, okay.
Like whoever, again, I don't want to be held to this, but it sounded as though the person who owned the home that story had been left in was the one who somehow got it to that editor, right? Or shared it like, these are some stories that were written by my friends, So anyway, the story, when it was published, was wildly successful, and both John and Lord Byron did try to clarify that John was the actual writer.
Good.
But most people didn't seem to get the point. In fact, Lord Byron even published his own story, A Fragment, as an attempt to clear up the issue. But this story, The Vampire, was a hot item, partly because people did think that Lord Byron had written it. And so it had its own little life. I mean, there was a novella version that was published not long after, several reprints, unauthorized editions. I mean, it was in high demand. It took off. There was a very popular London stage adaptation.
Good
I
golly.
mean, it was a sensation, not just in one country. I mean, it was spreading other countries as well. Okay. So I bring all this up because it's very important that we point out the significance of the vampire. It is often referred to as the first published modern vampire story in English literature. And some sources call the book's main character, Lord Ruthven, the first aristocratic vampire. Prior to this, vampires were often portrayed in folklore as these grotesque monsters.
So now he's refined.
John Story
He's
was
got a
the
title.
one. Yep. He started to create the archetype of the charming, sophisticated vampire
Rakish.
who can travel undetected in those wealthy social circles.
Interesting.
And this literary work reached a lot of people through the written version or through the stage version, whatever it was. So this was huge, right? In terms of the vampire lore, this was huge. All right. Now, again, The Vampire was published in 1819. Abraham Stoker, better known as Bram Stoker, was not even born until 1847. So
Wow.
3 decades passed before he's born, and 50 more years after that before his book comes out.
Wow.
You see what I'm saying? Like,
I
this
do.
was a foundational piece. All right, so we're going to get into Bram's work.
Can I
here in a
also
minute.
say I did not realize that Bram was short for Abraham, and that's adorable.
That's funny.
I did. That's precious. Because Abe Stoker just doesn't have the same.
Abe Stoker, vampire hunter.
Sausage King of Chicago.
All right, we are getting ready to go into a break, but before we do, I thought it might be fun to have a little teaser. So Ashley, I am going to ask you in a second to read a short excerpt from Dracula. It is one that you will be fine to read.
Come on.
You will be fine to
Okay.
read this. You're going to use your most foreboding tone.
Oh, dear. Okay.
But first, a brief setup, okay? So the plot of Bram Stoker's Dracula is told through a series of diary entries, journal entries, letters, that type of thing. So the story starts with a young English solicitor, Jonathan Harker, traveling to Transylvania to assist one of the firm's clients, Count Dracula, with his purchase of property in England. The locals in Transylvania area have a strong reaction when they hear where Jonathan is headed, and sure enough, Jonathan finds Count Dracula to be very strange and off-putting. So what you're about to hear is a small excerpt from Jonathan's description of that first meeting in Dracula's castle.
Here's my creepy voice, I think. I don't know. Hitherto, I had noticed the backs of his hands as they lay on his knees in the firelight, and they had seemed rather white and fine. But seeing them now close to me, I could not but notice that they were rather coarse, broad, with squat fingers. Strange to say, there were hairs in the center of the palm. The nails were long and fine and cut to a sharp point. As the Count leaned over me and his hands touched me, I could not repress a shudder. It may have been that his breath was rank, but a horrible feeling of nausea came over me, which, do what I would, I could not conceal. The Count, evidently noticing it, drew back, and with a grim sort of smile, which showed more than he had yet done his protuberant teeth, sat himself down again on his own side of the fireplace. We were both silent for a while, and as I looked toward the window, I saw the first dim streak of the coming dawn. There seemed a strange stillness over everything. But as I listened, I heard, as if from down below in the valley, the howling of many wolves. The Count's eyes gleamed, and he said, "Listen to them, the children of the night. What music they make." Seeing, I suppose, some expression in my face strange to him, he added, "Ah, sir, you dwell—" or should it be, "Ah, sir, you dwellers in the city cannot enter into the feelings of the hunter." Then he rose and said, "But you must be tired. Your bedroom is all ready, and tomorrow you shall sleep as late as you will. I have to be away till the afternoon, so sleep well and dream well." With a courteous bow, he opened for me himself the door to the octagonal room, and I entered my bedroom. I am all in a sea of wonders. I doubt, I fear, I think strange things, which I dare not confess to my own soul. God keep me, if only for the sake of those dear to me.
Nicely done.
That was a straight reading, you guys.
Ooh, okay.
Cold reading, as they say.
Well, We're going to take a break there.
Okay.
And when we come back, there is so much more to talk about.
Okay.
All right.
We love including listener voices in our episodes, and we're always looking for more. So tell us, where do you sip your scandal water? Do you catch up on the tea while folding your laundry, sitting at your work desk, working out at the gym? Let us know by sending in your shout out, telling us your first name, your hometown, and where you are or what you're doing when you're listening to Scandal Water. And you just might hear a voice you recognize starting one of our upcoming episodes. Email your audio clip to scandalwaterpodcast@gmail.com. The voice memo app on your phone will work just fine. Cheers!
And we are back.
Yes.
So over the break, we looked back up that funny meme that you found.
It's on Instagram, and it's a guy. His handle is It's the Hey Man, and I think he just does funny voicemails. And I sent this to Candy because I knew she was doing research into Dracula, and then she texted me later, and she's like, "This is even funnier now that I'm going back and doing the research for it." But we're gonna play a couple. Like just a line or two from the start of it, just to give you a taste of what it is.
Hey man, so I'm out here participating in what might be a real estate scam. The mark is some dude named Count Dracula. I forget. Like, I really don't understand why they sent me out here in the first place, because all I'm doing here is carrying documents. And I asked my boss, like, couldn't the postal service do that? Seems like I'm just operating here as like a glorified envelope.
So you can see where he's like Jonathan, and it says it's from the perspective of Jonathan Harker.
That's so funny. I love it. Very cute, and very appropriate right now. Yes. All right, let's talk about Bram. So Bram Stoker grew up in Dublin, with his early childhood being very difficult due to an undiagnosed illness that left him bedridden.
Aww.
Yeah, for the first 7 years of his life, he could not walk or even stand.
Aww.
And some of the techniques they used to try to deal with the situation included bloodletting.
No.
It was bad.
Yeah.
Yeah, but fortunately, he recovered, and he not only gained the ability to walk again, but he went
I don't
on
even think
to...
walk again, just walk,
Well,
right?
that's a good point. You're
Yeah.
right. And went on to become an amazing athlete in several different sports.
Well, good for him.
Yeah. He graduated from Trinity College in Dublin, and it sounds as though he had literary aspirations from a very young age, but then had to take other jobs to make ends meet.
I feel you, Bram.
Right. So for 13 years, he worked as a civil servant, basically in a clerical job, but...
That's soul crushing alone, right?
He wrote a book about it. They said it was so dry. It's like almost like this how-to book.
How to
that dealt
survive.
with his job. But that's the thing. He loved the literary world.
Yeah.
So even while he was working, he found ways to make sure that he was following
Still
his
writing.
passion. Yes. So one of those, because he was so interested in theater, he worked as an unpaid drama critic for the Dublin Evening Mail. And he also worked on writing things and trying to get published, though not with a great deal of success.
Again, I feel you, Bram.
But it was through his work as a theater critic that he met Henry Irving, a famous actor who also ran the Lyceum Theatre in London. Now, many sources say that Bram almost adulated this British star. I mean, he had this kind of hero worship thing for him, and the two became very friendly. So when Henry offered Bram the chance to move to London to become his business manager, he jumped at it. Absolutely. But first he got married to his fiancée, Florence Balcom, which put a strain on Bram's friendship with Oscar Wilde, because Oscar Wilde had courted Florence for about 2 years prior to this, and he kind of thought he was going to be married to her, so he was not happy when she chose Bram over him. So the Stokers moved to London in December of 1878, where Bram was basically Henry Irving's right-hand man. He not only managed his tours and much of the actor's personal affairs, he also did a lot of the work in running the Lyceum Theatre itself.
I mean, can you imagine getting a job for your hero?
I know.
That's
I
amazing.
know. Yeah. I think he absolutely loved it.
He loved life.
Yeah. He would end up staying in that position until Henry passed in 1905. But it was also during this time period that he wrote several articles, stories, and books, one being Dracula, which was published in 1897. Now, an interesting little side note, one author pointed out that Bram Stoker's lead vampire was very different from the one created by John Polidori. Remember we talked about...
Stylish, refined.
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
but we even heard it in the excerpt that you read, Ashley, where it was talking about...
He was stinky.
Yes.
He had bad teeth.
hair in the middle of his hands.
And his palm, not even on the back of his hand, his palm. You're like, why do you have hair in the middle of your palm?
Yeah, this was not the charming, rakish Lord Ruthven at all. Yeah, no attractive qualities. He was a predatory monster. Mm-hmm. And this was something that was pointed out as well. The Count really is not a huge part in Bram's book in terms of, how do I phrase
Page
this?
count, maybe?
Yes, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
How much he actually appears in the book itself.
Kind of like Hannibal Lecter in the movie, you know, it's more about, in the dinosaurs in Jurassic Park, it's more about the thought of them than the actual them.
Right. You know, yeah, Count Dracula is not the protagonist of the story. The plot is following the characters who are out to stop Count Dracula. So what inspired it? This has a lot of legend around it as well. David J. Schall wrote a biography called Something in the Blood that was published in 2016. Here's a quote from that biography. According to his son, Stoker always claimed the inspiration for the book came from a nightmare induced by, quote, a too generous helping of dressed crab at supper.
For real?
I know, end quote. A dab of blarney the writer enjoyed dishing out when asked, but no one took it seriously. It may sound too much like Ebenezer Scrooge famously dismissing Marley's ghost
as a blot of mustard, a crunch of cheese.
Bit of beef, a blot of mustard, a crumb of cheese. You nailed it. But that hasn't stopped the midnight snack of dressed crab from being served up as a matter of fact by countless people on countless occasions. While the nightmare aspect may well have some validity, Stoker's notes at least suggest that the story might have had its genesis in a disturbing vision or reverie. It exemplifies the way truth, falsehood, and speculation have always conspired to distort Dracula scholarship. So his point is there's a lot of myth surrounding the origins of Dracula, and it's really hard for us to know the full truth.
Okay.
We see so many different stories, so many different things that are said. So we're going to follow this rabbit trail for just a few minutes and discuss some of the information I ran across while researching. I found it was so cool. I found the original newspaper article. It was an interview that Bram gave that came out just weeks after Dracula was published. So it was in 1897, and it was in an interview he gave to a reporter from the British Weekly. Found the original copy of this. Ooh. So this comes from Bram himself. He told that journalist that the story behind Dracula had, quote, undoubtedly a very fascinating theme since it touches both on mystery and fact. In the Middle Ages, the terror of the vampire depopulated whole villages. So he said, some myth, some fact, okay? And then when that reporter asked him if there was any historical basis for the legend, he replied, quote, it rested, I imagine, on some such case as this. A person may have fallen into a death-like trance and been buried before the time. Afterwards, the body may have been dug up and found alive, and from this a horror seized upon the people, and in their ignorance they imagined that a vampire was about. The more hysterical, through excess of fear, might themselves fall into trances in the same way. And so the story grew that one vampire might enslave many others and make them like himself.
That's almost like zombies.
Kind of, yeah. Even in the single villages, it was believed that there might be many such creatures. When once the panic seized the population, their only thought was to escape. So it sounds like, again, this folklore aspect, right? These are some beliefs that people had, which he sounds like he's saying, well, you know, there was medical reasons behind this, right? Isn't
that why we have the graveyard shift and the bells on coffins?
Absolutely.
So that when people were buried alive, because it happened, they could ring the bell when they woke up?
100%.
That's frightening.
Isn't it, though? Well, another very famous rumor is that the character of Count Dracula was based on the 15th century Wallachian ruler Vlad Tepes III.
Vlad the Impaler?
Yep, 100%. Commonly known as Vlad the Impaler or Vlad Dracula, which was, yes. So this fella ruled in a place that is now in modern-day Romania. And as his nickname suggests, he was extremely brutal in his treatment of enemies, with impalement being one of his favorite strategies. Yeah, he reportedly killed tens of thousands of people. And although they don't believe this to be true, rumors did circulate that he would even sometimes dip his bread in the blood of his victims.
Stop.
That was part of the mythology that surrounded him. Movies such as 1992 Bram Stoker's Dracula have helped to reinforce that rumor that Bram did base his character on Count Dracula, or Vlad Tepes as we say. But several people who have spent time digging into the rumor believe that Bram didn't so much base Count Dracula on Vlad the Impaler as much as he borrowed some details from that legend.
Okay.
Okay, now to explore this just a little bit. The word Dracul in medieval Romanian had more than one meaning, and one thing the word Dracul meant was dragon. Vlad the Impaler's father was called Vlad Dracul, or Vlad the Dragon, after he became a member of the Order of the Dragon. So when they called his son, Vlad Tepes III, by the name Vlad Dracula, that was actually a reference to his father, because the translation was basically son of a dragon. Son of a dragon. Okay, now, the word could also mean devil, and that's something that Bram Stoker recorded in his research. And apparently he felt like that name would be more appropriate for the villain in his horror story, because the original name that he was going to use was Count Wampyr, Wampyr. I like Count Dracula a lot better.
Yeah, that has a better ring to it.
I think I probably mispronounced that. I bet it was supposed to sound like Wampire. Like Count
vampire,
like
Wampire?
Vampire with a W.
Because otherwise it sounds like Wampyr. Can you imagine?
So frightening.
You're so scary. Oh, it's Count Wampyr. He couldn't scare anybody.
Wampire. That's much better. That's much better. Okay. All
Although
right.
now I want to write a story about Wampyr. the little vampire that couldn't.
His teeth were just little baby teeth.
Little nose.
Back to this. Around 2011, one of Bram's descendants located a journal in which Bram had recorded a lot of notes and research. They refer to this as the Lost Journal of Bram Stoker.
Ooh.
One notation inside of it reads, quote, Dracula in Wallachian language means devil. He wrote devil in all caps.
Ooh.
Wallachians were accustomed to give it as a surname to any person who rendered himself conspicuous either by courage, cruel actions, or cunning. So again, straight from Bram's notes.
Okay.
Vlad the Impaler definitely seems to have inspired Dracula, at least in terms of his name. But again, loosely based might be more accurate rather than based on. In that same British Weekly interview we already mentioned, Bram said that he'd had the plot for the story in his mind for a long time, but that writing the book itself took him 3 years. He also shared that he had read several sources in preparation for writing the story. One of those was a work called Essays on Romanian Superstitions. I saw several sources that said he spent something like 7 years on that book in total.
Wow.
In terms of...
But look at the payoff.
Right.
We're still talking about it.
Right. Now, in researching this, I also ran across something else that I thought was very cool. I hope you guys think this is as interesting as I do, okay? In this clip that I'm about to play, you're going to hear the director of the London Library sharing a discovery he made.
Because it's from 1672, it's in our safes. It's by Sir Thomas Browne, and it's called Pseudodoxia Epidemica. This has marks, exactly like the other marks, opposite the very passages that Stoker notes when researching Dracula. What makes this book particularly interesting is, although it came into the library in 1937, it was donated to the library by Bram Stoker's son. So this is the book that proves that Stoker liked to mark the passages of interest, either by lines or by crosses or by turning down a page. In total, Stoker notes 30 books and authors that he is interested in studying for Dracula. And in the library, we have 26 of those, and 24 of the books were on the shelves when Stoker was a member. Sadly, the library hasn't retained the borrowing records from that period, but the marginalia in these books and the book that came from Stoker's own collection give a pretty strong hint that these are the very books that Bram Stoker borrowed to write Dracula, and that one of the great figures of English literature was born right here at the London Library.
That is so cool.
Is that not cool?
So what I'm understanding is they have in their collection books that he borrowed from the library and then he wrote in them?
He literally marked, yes, he made notes or he made little marks of passages and pieces of information that he was using in his research for Dracula.
Not recommended to do for library books,
Right.
but very cool when you are Bram Stoker and you're researching Dracula.
Well, and it's the 1800s. I don't know if they have the same
Yeah, they don't have those
that
rules
they do
then.
nowadays. But is that not
That
the
was
coolest?
amazing.
So I'm assuming that you can go to the London Library now and say, "Can I see the collection of books that Bram Stoker
borrowed?"
used?" I mean, like, I just think that's so cool.
That is very cool.
Yes. I think what really speaks to me is here he's creating this fictional story, but yet he did do a lot of research to, first of all, call on folklore, right? But then he also wanted things to seem realistic, you know, so he did base things or he used real life things.
I think that's smart because it makes people reading it think this could happen.
Exactly. Just to give one more example, Bram even conducted research for the book when he was vacationing with his family in Whitby, England. I found a 2018 Time magazine article written by Dacre Stoker, great grandnephew of Bram Stoker, and it was co-written with another fellow named J.D. Barker. But in this article, they overview the research that Bram did one day in the summer of 1890. The article says that Bram first visited the subscription library in Whitby, where he opened one book, made notes. Then he went to the Whitby Museum, where he used maps there to come up with a route from London to Romania.
That's interesting.
Well, and of course, and then we see that in the book, right? Then he went to Whitby Harbor, and there he spoke to some members of the Royal Coast Guard who told him about a ship called the Demeter that had run aground a few years before. And this is believed to have sparked the idea for the ship in the book called the Demeter. Okay, so basically, I'm just trying to get across this point that he researched extensively. He often used real people or real events to spark ideas for his fiction. And in fact, Dacre Stoker said in an interview that along with Vlad, Henry Irving, remember the actor that he worked for? Henry Irving also influenced how Bram represented the character Dracula. He said, this is Dacre said, quote, Irving played Mephistopheles, the devil, at the Lyceum for 27 years.
Wow.
Which provided Bram with a strong visual representation. Yeah. All right, so 2 interesting side notes. In 2023, news reports came out about a study analyzing DNA left on letters known to have been written by Vlad the Impaler. And based on the results, scientists suspect he may have had hemolacria, a condition that allows blood to mix with the fluid in a person's tear ducts, causing that person to cry bloody tears.
What?
I know. I was like, so that may be part of why he had such a, legend, such mythology around him being this bloody person, if he actually could cry bloody tears.
That's terrible.
Second little side note, just for fun, King Charles said in an interview for a 2011 TV show promoting the preservation of forests in Romania's Transylvania region that, quote, the genealogy shows that I am descended from Vlad the Impaler, so I have a bit of stake in the country.
He made a joke, a bit of stake in the country.
But he actually told an actor, these twice, King Charles has said he's related to Vlad the Impaler.
I don't know, that's something I'd be bragging about, but okay, Charles.
I thought it was interesting nonetheless. All right. Response to Dracula.
Okay.
Several sources described Dracula as being moderately successful when it was released in 1897.
Oh, really? Moderately? He did all that work and they're just like, well, I'm here to tell you, Bram, baby Bram.
Yeah.
You did okay.
He did just fine. Now, this is going to make you feel a little sad because...
Did he die before he even...
Well, listen to what happened.
Dang it, they always die. They work so hard and then they're like, "Ugh," and they're out.
When Bram Stoker died in 1912...
So not long after.
His obituary had like a list of his works, and Dracula was just like buried in the middle of that list. It doesn't seem like anybody really recognized how significant that work was going to be. In fact, this was the part that kind of got me. You know what got the most emphasis in his obituary?
That he worked for that guy?
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
His work for, his relationship with, Henry Irving. And before he died, I don't know when it came out actually, but he had at some point published a book of personal reminiscences about being this close friend and this companion, this employee to Henry Irving. That was the publication that they highlighted.
Well, I can see it. I mean, that's a huge star of their time. They're gonna tie in however they can. Although I do want to point out, I think he would enjoy the fact that you said that Dracula was buried in the list.
Yeah, so many jokes here.
I'm full of quips
you
today.
are so good, so good.
Full of quips.
Well, here's the thing. I found that obituary. I read it.
You did?
I read it. I did. I read it myself. And I was like, Bram, they cheated you.
You did.
But here's something I wrote in my notes. He would never guess that the character he created would go on to be named the most portrayed literary character in film by the Guinness Book of World Records. That is something that I didn't write the date down, but I believe it was 2012 that he received that title. And here's one other interesting little rabbit trail we're going to follow. It was a copyright battle that was largely responsible for Dracula becoming the sensation that it is now recognized to be today.
What?
Okay, here we go. Bram was pretty savvy legally. He had been very careful about copyright with his works. In fact, just a week or so before the novel Dracula was published, he'd even held a dramatic reading at the Lyceum Theater in order to secure the stage rights.
Oh, smart.
Now, after he died, we've already said this, his works largely seemed to be forgotten. His wife, Florence, was struggling financially. She wasn't getting much from his royalties, and definitely not a wealthy woman. A decade after Bram passed, in 1922, a silent film called Nosferatu, a symphony of horror, was released in Germany, later shown in other countries as well. The movie was a German expressionist film directed by F.W. Murnau and starring Max Schreck as Count Orlok. Nosferatu is widely regarded to be an influential and foundational work of the horror genre, with some calling it a horror masterpiece. In fact, did you remember just a few years ago there was a remake?
I did.
Yeah, it was, some call it a reimagining, but it was titled Nosferatu, and it came out in 2024. Just as a side note for this, it was that film that established the piece of vampire lore surrounding the effect of sunlight on creatures. In Dracula and other early vampire stories, vampires could go out in the daylight, although the sunlight could weaken them. Nosferatu was the one that established the legend that sunlight burns and can even kill vampires.
Interesting.
Yes. This is something that did come up, by the way, in different sources, how it was different works over time that kind of would add to or change the vampire lore. Right. But back to our timeline. Here is an excerpt from a New York Times article that explains what happened after the 2022 movie Nosferatu premiered. Quote, when the director F.W. Murnau and the producer Albin Gropp approached the estate of Bram Stoker, hoping to adapt his seminal horror novel Dracula into a feature film in 1921, the author's widow turned them down flat.
Wow.
Unswayed, the filmmakers went ahead, pressing the screenwriter Heinrich Galeen to make a handful of cosmetic changes to obscure their act of plagiarism.
So this is where the money came from then. Did she sue them for copyright infringement?
You're gonna hear it. Yep. When Nosferatu was released the following year, the Stoker estate took them to court, kicking off a lengthy international legal battle. The final ruling ordered all copies of the film to be confiscated and destroyed. Luckily, a few prints survived, and the film was subsequently restored and reappraised as one of the most influential films of the silent era.
Wow.
So basically, they almost had that movie obliterated.
Yeah.
Okay. But it was a long battle, primarily because she needed money to keep engaging in her copyright battle. Florence gave an Irish actor and playwright named Hamilton Dean permission to stage the first authorized adaptation in 1924, which was met with success. That led to the play opening on Broadway in 1927, where a Hungarian actor named Bela Lugosi originated the role of Count Dracula and then went on to star in Universal's 1931 blockbuster Dracula.
Wow.
Yeah. Yeah.
One thing really does lead to another sometimes, doesn't it?
Really? I mean, think about that. If it hadn't been for them plagiarizing and her, Dracula would probably be forgotten.
Probably.
Yeah. A movie analyst who wrote an article for IMDb ranking 60 different Dracula films from best to worst listed the 1931 Dracula film directed by Todd Browning and Karl Freund at number 4, offering this opinion. One of the most influential films of all time, this early talkie essentially invented the horror genre in Hollywood and inspired Universal to launch its series of monster movies, as well as encouraging other studios to make their own shockers. It also introduced the most iconic performance of Dracula ever, with Bela Lugosi's suave count with mesmerizing eyes highlighted by cinematographer Karl Freund. Lugosi's wonderful accent gave us the since oft-repeated non-Stoker line, "I never drink wine." If the film weren't so stagey in its later scenes, I would rank it higher.
Wow.
Yeah. So, just for fun, you heard my terrible impression.
You gonna play the real?
Here's the real one.
Aren't you drinking? I never drink. Why?
You could see it too, right?
Yeah.
He did look very dapper,
It's
didn't
very
he?
suave.
Yes.
No hair on those palms.
No, that is correct. Probably had a mint or something for that breath as
That's
well.
right.
This brings us full circle to the discussion we had at the top of the episode. It's been about 130 years since Bram Stoker's book was published and nearly 100 years since the 1931 film came out.
Wow.
And since then, we have enjoyed countless vampire stories, with lots of thanks due to our early horror writers, John Polidori and Bram Stoker.
That's so cool.
Yeah.
Armchair psychologist.
So for the armchair, this was something that I mentioned a few minutes ago. There's that idea that came up in source after source where they said the lore of the vampire is ever evolving. According to this source or that source, something gets changed, something gets tweaked, something gets added. Now, I know you are someone who doesn't love horror, but still, you know quite a bit about this.
Yeah.
What piece of vampire lore do you personally think is most frightening or most intriguing?
Oh, okay. So give me a few of them to remind me, refresh me. What is some of the vampire lore? We've got
They are nocturnal. The sunlight can kill them. They have to drink blood.
probably the drinking the blood would be the worst and the creepiest and the most scary because that's Redford. Sorry, hang on. That's just awful. I think one of the lines is the life is in the blood, which is a biblical thought too, and to pervert that, just I don't like that. That's the grossest to me.
So kind of that cross between the supernatural element of it that you don't like, as well as just
I
it's
don't even like getting my blood drawn, so I don't like that at all.
right. I think to me, we've talked about this before. I think in our Halloween episode, for sure, I remember bringing this up. There's something about the idea of not being able to kill something.
Oh, that too.
Something that's undead. And you can't stop it, you can. There's a way to stop a vampire according to the lore, but it's hard. It's really hard. They seem very powerful, hard to defeat, and just that idea of being undead.
Yeah, I don't like it.
All right, Ashley, before we sign off, any last thoughts about Count Dracula, Bram's work?
Well, to me, this was a really fun episode. It was a lot more fun than I was anticipating it
Were
being.
you dreading it?
No, I wasn't dreading it. I was just sort of like, oh, it's so icky and scary. But there was a lot of, I appreciate how much work he put into this. 30 sources and 7 years and how hard that he worked while doing another job. And I liked learning that part about Bram Stoker himself. I thought that was really interesting. And I could identify with a lot of his struggles, as any person who writes can.
Yeah. And I think for me, what was most fascinating was tracing the evolution of it and going back to okay, I'm just going to say this. I know this doesn't seem like it's about this episode, but I am just amazed. I am amazed that one event, this group of writers, these intellectual writers coming together on a vacation basically and sitting around saying, let's write a ghost story, how much they have impacted literature.
The culture,
right. It just absolutely blows me away.
I would like to see a movie about that.
I'm surely there's been
Maybe
one
not.
put out. We'll have to look it up. Well, that brings us to our cheers. And I mean, obviously, a huge cheers to Bram Stoker.
Yes, you worked hard and it paid off, even if you didn't see it.
Cheers to you, Bram.
Cheers.
If you love what we do, please rate and review our show or become a supporter through Buy Me a Coffee or Patreon. Whether a single gift or recurring monthly donation, your support is what allows us to keep the tea brewing.
Subscribe on your favorite podcast app or the Scandal Water Podcast YouTube channel, and follow us on Facebook, Instagram, and TikTok. Show notes are available at our website, scandalwaterpodcast.com, where you can also access the merch store and more.
This episode was executive produced by Candy Thomas, that's me, and Ashley Raymer Brown,
That's me.
It was researched and written by Candy Thomas and edited by Ashley Raymer Brown.
A special thank you to Josh Martin, who wrote, composed, and performed the Scandal Water theme and other music, Matt C. Adams, who created the artwork, and Joshua Reeve, who designed our website and provides ongoing technical support.
As a reminder, this podcast is purely for entertainment purposes. The thoughts and opinions of the host during each episode of Scandal Water are their own and do not reflect the opinions of any future guests, advertisers, or clearly professional psychologists. Thanks for listening. Cheers to you. Nope, not that sounded like Arnold
The Terminator.
Schwarzenegger. Yes.